Doctor goes into that room because he was feeling something is going on, and he was looking at the black box on the bench, and then he was asking from Klausner, you have got your hat on, he said. Then Klausner was bewildered, and then he removes his hat from his head. He was putting it on the bench. Doctor came up closer and bent down to look into the box. What is this? He said, making a radio. So he was inquired by the doctor that what he is doing. The reply was he was making a radio. Doctor was intelligent and cunning, so he said, no, just fooling around. It's got rather complicated looking innards. So innards means the inner parts of a machine, the internal parts of the machine. So he was saying, but they are looking a bit complicated than radio. So it cannot be radio. Yes, Klausner seemed tense and distracted. Now Klausner did not want to disclose anything, so he was feeling tension. And what is it? The doctor asked. It's rather a frightening looking thing, isn't it? Doctor understood that something he was preparing which is not very comfortable in looking, it's not very convenient in looking, and it is looking rather complicated and dangerous. It's just an idea, yes. It has to do with sound, that's all. Good heavens, man, don't you get enough of that sort of thing all day in your work? I like sound. So it seemed the doctor went to the door, turned and said, well, I won't disturb you. Glad your throat is not worrying you anymore. But he kept standing there, looking at the box, intrigued by the remarkable complexity of its inside, curious to know what this strange patient of his was up to. What's it really for? He asked. You have made me inquisitive. So he has been intrigued. Intrigued means he was getting interested at that time, just because of its remarkable complexity of inside of that machine. He was very curious to know what this strange patient of his was up to. Means उनका एक strange patient ऐसा क्या invent करने जा रहा है जो sound से related है, and he was, what is it really for? That why he is inventing something? Is it really for which purpose, and will that purpose is good or bad? He asked, you have made me inquisitive. So he told him that he made him curious. Klausner looked down at the box, then at the doctor, and he reached up and began gently to scratch the lobe of his right ear. There was a pause. The doctor stood by the door, waiting, smiling. All right, I'll tell you. If you're interested. There was another pause, and the doctor could see that Klausner was having trouble about how to begin. He was shifting from one foot to the other, tugging at the lobe of his ear, looking at his feet, and then at last, slowly, he said, well, it's like this. The theory is very simple, really, the human ear. You know that it can't hear everything. There are sounds that are so low pitched or so high pitched that it can't hear them. Yes, the doctor said yes. Well, speaking very roughly, and in notes so high that it has more than 15,000 vibrations a second, we can't hear it. Dogs have better ears than us. You know, you can buy a whistle whose note is so high pitched that you can't hear it at all, but a dog can hear it. Yes, I have seen one, the doctor said. So children, it is basically that वो क्या बना रहा था. डॉक्टर बहुत इनक्विजिटिव हो गए और उन्होंने कहा कि ठीक है, मैं आपको बताता हूँ. क्लॉसनर ने डॉक्टर से कहा, मैं आपको बताता हूँ अगर आपको इसमें इंटरेस्ट है. फिर वो रुके और डॉक्टर देख सकते थे कि क्लॉसनर को बोलने में या अपनी बात एक्सप्लेन करने में कि एक्चुअली वो क्या बना रहे थे, इसमें दिक्कत हो रही थी. Well, speaking very roughly, any note so high means as he was explaining it to the doctor that any note which is so high and can be very low, sometimes our ear cannot लिसन टू. हमारे कान हर साउंड जो वाइब्रेशन होते हैं, जो साउंड होते हैं, नहीं सुन सकते, सच है. और ये सारी एक्टिविटीज़ जो इंसेक्ट्स होते हैं, जो डॉग्स होते हैं या जो एनिमल्स होते हैं, दे कैन डू, दे कैन हियर. Even they can with their activities they can tell us that what is going to be happen in the village also. You go to with the activities of the birds and the insects, immediately people can understand ठीक है बारिश आने वाली, आंधी आने वाली, like that. So that the pitch, the notes, the sounds which a normal human ear cannot listen to, वो ऐसी मशीन बनाना चाहते थे. Yes, I have seen one. Then he was not ready to explain it to the doctor. I was feeling it very difficult to explain it to it. Of course, you have and up the scale higher than the note of that whistle. There is another note, a vibration, if you like. But I prefer to think of it as a note. You can't hear that one either, and above that there is another and another rising right up the scale forever and ever and ever. An endless succession of notes, an infinity of notes. There is a note if only our ears could hear it. So high that it vibrates 1,000,000 times a second, and another 1,000,000 times as high as that, and on, higher and higher, as far as numbers go, which is infinity, eternity, beyond the stars. So he wanted to explain that a vibration, if we like, and but he preferred to think if it as a note. आप उसे नहीं सुन सकते. और कभी कभी ऐसा भी होता है कि उसका धीरे धीरे उसका स्केल बढ़ता चला जाता है, पिच बढ़ता चला जाता है, और एक अंतहीन सक्सेशन होता है नोट्स का. एक सार्थकता होती है, एक शाश्वत होता है वो नोट, वो जो आवाज़ होती है. और इसी वजह से उसको सुनना, देयर इज़ अ नोट इफ़ ओनली आर ईयर्स को, अगर हमारे कान सिर्फ उसको सुन सकते हैं, वो इतना ऊंचा होता है, वो वाइब्रेट करता है 1,000,000 टाइम्स, 1 सेकेंड में 1,000,000 टाइम्स वाइब्रेट करता है. फिर दूसरा 1,000,000 टाइम्स एज हाई एज, फिर वो बढ़ता जाता है, ऊंचा होता जाता है, उसकी संख्या दूर दूर तक बढ़ती जाती है, जैसे कि बिल्कुल अनंत होना, और वो सितारों के पार चला जाता है. Klausner was becoming more animated every moment. He was a small, frail man, nervous and twitchy, with always moving hands, his large head inclined towards his left shoulder as though his neck were not quite strong enough to support it rigidly. His face was smooth and pale, almost white, and the pale grey eyes that blinked and peered from behind a pair of steel spectacles were bewildered, unfocused, remote. He was a pale, nervous, twitchy little man, a moth of a man, dreamy and distracted, suddenly fluttering and animated. And now the doctor, looking at that strange pale face and those pale grey eyes, felt that somehow there was about this little person a quality of distance, of immense, immeasurable distance, as though the mind were far away from where the body was. So Klausner was becoming more animated. वो बहुत ज़्यादा एनिमेटेड हो रहे थे, और वो एक छोटे से, नाजुक से, नर्वस, हमेशा अपने हाथ हिलाने वाले मनुष्य थे. His large head, it was inclined towards it, वो हमेशा उनके लेफ़्ट शोल्डर पे झुका रहता था. जैसे लगता था कि उनका जो नेक है वो इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं है कि वो उसको रिजिडली सपोर्ट कर सके, तो उस शोल्डर पे झुका रहता था. उनका चेहरा जो था स्मूथ, थोड़ा सा पीलापन लिए, लगभग सफ़ेद, और उनकी पीली स्लेटी आँखें जो बार बार झपक रही थीं और उनके स्टील स्पेक्टेकल्स से झांक रही थीं. वो चिंतित थी, अनफोकस थी और रिमोट थी। वो इतने नर्वस दिख रहे थे, twitchy मीन्स नर्वस एंड एंशियस, इतने कंफ्यूज थे, इतने नर्वस थे, एंशियस थे। और मोस्ट ऑफ अ मैन ही वॉज ड्रीमी एंड डिस्ट्रैक्टेड, वो कल्पना में खोए हुए थे, डिस्ट्रैक्ट हो गए थे। और अचानक से, और अब डॉक्टर जो उनके इस तरह के चेहरे को देख रहा था, उनकी आंखों को देख रहा था, उन्हें ऐसा महसूस किया कि इस छोटे आदमी से एक तरह का डिस्टेंस of immense immeasurable distance as though the mind were far away from where the body was। मतलब उनकी जो आँखें और उनका जो दिमाग था वो उनके शरीर से इस समय दूर हो रहा था। So he was distracted from that place, he was distracted from that environment, and doctor was was understanding each and everything which was going on. So the doctor waited for him to go on Klausner's side and clasped his hands tightly together. He said, I believe, speaking more slowly now, that there's a whole world of sound about us all the time that we cannot hear. It is possible that up there in those high-pitched, inaudible regions, there's a new exciting music being made, with visible harmonies and fires grinding discords. A music so powerful that it would drive us mad if only our ears were tuned to hear the sound of it. There may be anything, for all we know there may. Yes, the doctor said, but it's not very probable. Why not? Why not? Klausner pointed to a fly sitting on a small roll of copper wire on the workbench. You see that fly? What sort of noise that fly is making? तो यहाँ पे क्लॉसनर बात कर रहे हैं कि यहाँ बहुत सारी साउंड्स होती हैं जिन्हें हम नहीं सुन सकते हैं और उनके सुनने के क्या फ़ायदे हैं। तो डॉक्टर सेज कि इट इज़ probabilities there, maybe we can hear, maybe we can not. So he said, why not? Then he was pointing out towards a fly who was sitting on a copper wire, and he was asking from the doctor whether he is able to listen to the fluttering sound of his wings and all.